December 16th, 1944, 0520 hours, Ardennes Forest, Belgium. Staff Sergeant William Hendricks crouched in a frozen foxhole, hands wrapped around a weapon that looked like it belonged in a hardware store, not a battlefield. The M3 submachine gun, $45 to manufacture, stamped from sheet metal, officially nicknamed the grease gun because it resembled the mechanic's tool, felt absurdly light in his hands. 8 pounds. No wooden stock, no fine machining, just bent steel and a simple bolt. Across no man's land, German forces armed with MP40s and Sturmgewehrs, weapons that cost 5 times as much, required skilled machinists, took weeks to produce, were beginning their assault through the winter fog. Hendricks squeezed the trigger. 450 rounds per minute. Slow, deliberate, controllable. The weapon that military procurement officers had dismissed as crude was about to prove that in warfare, simplicity isn't a weakness, it's survival. By 1942, America faced a manufacturing crisis that had nothing to do with production capacity. The Thompson submachine gun, the iconic Tommy gun, was bankrupting the war effort. Each Thompson required over $200 to produce, 40 hours of skilled machining, precision parts that demanded experienced craftsmen already stretched impossibly thin. The military needed 600,000 submachine guns, immediately, for a war being fought on 5 continents simultaneously. George Hyde, a gun designer working in practical obscurity, understood something the military establishment didn't want to admit. Wars aren't won by the most sophisticated weapon. They're won by the weapon you can actually put in a soldier's hands. His solution was radical. Strip away everything that required a machinist. Eliminate every component that needed precision tooling. Design a weapon that could be manufactured by workers who'd never touched a gun before. The M3 used stamping and welding, processes that teenage girls in Detroit factories could master in an afternoon. No milled receivers, no precision-cut barrels, just bent sheet metal, a simple bolt, and springs you could replace with a screwdriver. Total manufacturing time, 5 hours. Cost, $20. Some estimates went as low as 15. Military brass hated it. This weapon represents an unacceptable compromise in quality, one ordnance officer wrote. American soldiers deserve better than stamped trash. The soldiers who actually had to carry weapons disagreed. The M3 embodied a principle that contradicted everything military thinking valued. It was deliberately designed to be just good enough. Not excellent, not impressive, just functional enough to do the job. Rate of fire, 450 rounds per minute. The Thompson fired 800. The German MP40, 550. The M3 was objectively slower, but slower meant controllable. Soldiers could actually keep the weapon on target during sustained fire. The Thompson climbed like a rocket. The M3 stayed put. Effective range, 50 yards. Pathetic by rifle standards. But submachine guns weren't designed for long-range engagement. They were for close quarters, trenches, buildings, vehicle crews. At 50 yards, the M3 put bullets exactly where you pointed it. The weapon had no safety mechanism. None. Instead, a dust cover that also functioned as the cocking handle. Flip it open, chamber around, close it, safe, open it, ready to fire. Simple enough that a terrified 19-year-old could operate it in complete darkness. Magazine capacity, 30 rounds. The curved magazine released with a single button press. Reloading took seconds, even with numb fingers in winter conditions. Everything about the weapon prioritized function under the worst possible circumstances. Mud, slow, sand, salt water. The M3 kept firing. The first M3s reached European theatre in December 1944, just in time for the Battle of the Bulge. Tank crews received them first. The Thompson was too long, too heavy for the cramped interior of an M4 Sherman. The M3 fit perfectly in the spaces between ammunition racks and periscopes. When tanks were hit, crews bailed out into hostile territory, carrying only what they could grab in seconds. The M3 became the weapon of choice. 8 pounds meant you could carry it and actually run. The Thompson weighed almost 14 pounds empty, an eternity when German infantry was closing distance. Paratroopers adopted it eagerly. Every ounce mattered when you were jumping into occupied France. The M3's compact design meant it could be broken down into components and reassembled without tools. The barrel unscrewed by hand, no special wrenches, no armorer required. In the Pacific, the weapon proved even more valuable. Jungle combat meant close-range firefights in dense vegetation. The M3's slow rate of fire conserved ammunition, critical when resupply came by boat every 3 weeks. Its simple design meant it could be cleaned with whatever was available: kerosene, diesel fuel. In extreme cases, soldiers cleaned them with Coca-Cola. The weapon required almost no maintenance. The operating manual was 6 pages long. Most soldiers never read it. They didn't need to. Military contracts ended in 1945. Production stopped. 700,000 units manufactured. The military assumed they'd be obsolete within a decade, replaced by more sophisticated designs emerging from post-war innovation. The M3 had other plans. Korea, 1950. American forces still carried them, not because of shortages, because tank crews and vehicle operators refused to give them up. The new M2 carbine was available. The M3 stayed in service. Vietnam, 1968. Special forces and tunnel rats preferred the M3 over the M16. In underground passages, where rifles were useless, the compact, reliable grease gun became the weapon of choice. It fired even when caked in mud that would jam any other weapon. The simplicity that made it cheap to produce made it indestructible in service. By the 1980s, military strategists assumed the M3 would finally retire. Instead, tank crews began hoarding them. Officially, the M3 was being replaced by the M9 pistol and MP5 submachine gun. Unofficially, crews smuggled the old grease guns from base to base, passing them down like family heirlooms. January 17, 1991, Kuwait border. 47 years after the weapon entered service, M1 Abrams tank commander Robert Chen carried an M3 that had been manufactured in 1944. The serial number placed it in the first production run. The weapon was older than his father. It had been in service continuously for nearly 5 decades. No major redesigns, no upgrades, no improvements. It didn't need them. When Chen's tank destroyed an Iraqi T-72, the crew bailed out and swept the wreckage. Chen carried the same weapon his grandfather might have used, clearing German positions in the Ardennes. It fired flawlessly. The Gulf War marked the M3's official retirement from US military service. 50 years of continuous deployment, longer than any other American infantry weapon, longer than the M1 Garand, longer than the 1911 pistol in frontline service, longer than weapons that cost 10 times as much and carried prestigious manufacturers' names. The secret wasn't sophistication, it was simplicity taken to its logical extreme. Modern military design philosophy favors complexity, smart weapons, integrated systems, technology that requires software updates and specialized maintenance. The M3 grease gun represents the opposite approach. Build something so simple that nothing can go wrong. Remove every component that isn't absolutely essential. Design for the lowest common denominator of conditions. It's not inspiring, it doesn't win awards. Military museums display Thompson submachine guns with loving care, while M3s sit in storage. But when you need a weapon to work, in a sandstorm, underwater, frozen solid, dropped from an aircraft, buried in mud for 3 weeks, you don't want sophisticated, you want simple. The weapon that cost $20 outlasted everything in the arsenal. It survived because it was designed not to impress inspectors, but to function when everything else failed. Staff Sergeant Hendricks survived the Ardennes. His M3 survived 5 more decades of service. Both proved that in the chaos of actual warfare, adequate and reliable beats perfect and fragile every single time. The grease gun wasn't America's best weapon. It was something more valuable, a weapon that absolutely, definitively worked. No qualifications, no asterisks, no maintenance schedules, just point and fire for 50 years. That's not crude, that's genius.